Couple seconds. Let's just make sure that people can hear us here. Still saying stream offline. Hopefully that'll change in a second. There we go. Us here. Still
Okay.
saying stream offline. Hopefully that'll change in a second.
There
Yeah,
we go.
so can you hear the stream playing back through?
I will find out.
No, I mean, so I could just hear it, but I guess you couldn't, so you can't hear what I'm hearing from my desktop apparently. But that's fine.
Oh, no.
That's something I have to figure out for Wednesday, but not a big deal for today. And we're live now, actually, Kai. So let's welcome everybody
Oh, well, good morning, everybody.
to the Fantasy Authority Game Day show. You get to look at Kai and I's beautiful faces for 1.5 hours because nobody else will be joining us today. Everybody is either sick or has had last minute things come up and they won't be able to join us. So no fire takes from Kevin, no arguments from Ryan, and then no voice of reason from Kent. It'll instead be Kai and I trying to help you fill out those rosters and get you ready for your Week 7 action.
We'll just have to supply all the fire ourselves, Anthony. That's what we're going to have to do.
Listen, I wholeheartedly believe we have plenty of fire between the two of us, so I think we will get this done. I'm very confident.
Oh, yeah.
One thing we do have to do is we probably should send out a tweet, let everybody know that we are good to go here. So if you guys can hear the clickety-clack of the keyboard, just excuse me for a second. I'll let Kai get us started on the schedule this week. Kai, why don't you actually get us started with injuries? Just want to recap. There's a few people who have been reportedly out today that wasn't really expected. So why don't you get us started with that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest injury is obviously Leonard Fournette's ankle. He will be out today. He won't be playing against the Colts in Indianapolis. They've announced they're closing the dome today, so you'd think, oh, maybe they can air it out some more. But no, I think the Jaguars are going to pound the rock with Chris Ivory, just as if he were Leonard Fournette. Obviously, Ivory is not as good as Fournette, but I still think you can start him. If he's out there on the waivers, pick him up, even if he doesn't start, in case this ankle is something that bothers Fournette. He did have trouble with ankle injuries in college, especially his last year there at LSU. So if this is something that lingers past the bye week, then you like having Chris Ivory on your roster a lot, especially if you are the Leonard Fournette owner. Because I think you can just plug him in and expect, 80% of what you're getting from Leonard Fournette, especially this week against the Colts, who their run defense has been better than expected, but the game scripts have not allowed them to stop the run as well as they can. So I do think Chris Ivory's a good start this week. He's been a little more involved in the passing game than Fournette has been already. I think the Jaguars said they might activate TJ Yeldon today to go along with Corey Grant, but I still think Ivory's going to get the lion's share of the touches, and you can expect, especially roll with him in things like DraftKings, FanDuel. If you're into that, his price is ridiculously cheap just because those websites did expect Fournette to play this week. So if you're looking for a cheap option at running back, I think he's only 4,400 on DraftKings, 4,500, something like that. So go with Fournette, go with Chris Ivory if you can this week.
They would love to go with Fournette.
Right, they would love to. We've also got Devontae Parker out this week for Anthony's Dolphins. That is something that we expected to happen. He's still dealing with that same injury that he was dealing with last week. So Jarvis Landry, again, will see an enormous workload. I believe, let's see, I'll write it down here. Jarvis Landry has had no less than 7 targets, 5 catches, or 40 yards in every single game. So that's at least 9 PPR points for those of you in those leagues every single game. That floor is so nice. And it should be even higher. He scored each of the last 2 weeks without Parker in the lineup. So they're looking for him in the red zone. They're looking to try to get him worked in without Cutler's go-to guy in Devontae Parker. So if you have Landry, make sure he's at least in your flex spot. And he's not a bad play either. Yeah, although he is a bit more expensive this week on DraftKings and and things just because they did expect Parker to be out again.
Right. Well, for all the talk this offseason about Landry not being a good fantasy player and not being a good option, that dude went drafted so late in drafts. He has been a must start for most of this season. He's just getting the targets. He's essentially like a running back on this team at this point.
He's like if Tavon Austin were good. That's what he is.
Oh no. Ryan's in the
Ryan
chat
Williams.
too. Ryan's in the chat. He's like,
Shout
oh
out
no.
to Ryan.
Man, so I just popped up Roto World. It looks like Andre Ellington has been listed as inactive as well. So he's probably cuttable at this point, right? I know people all this week were trying to tone down the noise about Adrian Peterson and saying that, Ellington still has a lot of value, but him being declared inactive in this game, to me, is a sign that he does not have any value.
I don't know about having no value. I think if he's sort of an end of the roster guy for you, then I don't mind cutting him to pick up upside guys like Marlon Mack, Matt Breida, Chris Ivory, these guys that are one injury away from being amazing. We've seen what Ellington is without Peterson in the lineup, and he's a low-end RB2 flex type of guy. So he's not going to win your league for you if anything does happen to Adrian Peterson. I think there was a quote, I don't know if it was this morning or definitely this week, where Bruce Arians said he would love to give Adrian Peterson the ball 25 times a game.
Yeah.
And, some people made jokes like, oh, well, duh, then that means you're winning if you're carrying 25 times a game. I'd love to have 20. But it is a commitment to the run game that they have now. They've completely changed their identity. This is a brand new team with Adrian Peterson in the lineup. He's given a spark to the offense, to the defense, but also he's especially sparked the running game. They tore up the Buccaneers last week on the ground, but until Adrian Peterson gets involved in the passing game, I still think there's a chance Ellington has value week to week just because he is the passing down back. They don't have much else going on there. Kerwin Williams is not anything worth rostering for any reason.
That's so sad too.
So
I had high hopes.
I know. I have to admit, I was one of the ones who picked him up in week 2 as the David Johnson owner, just desperately hoping he could be anything above an RB5, but that's what he was when he was in the lineup.
Yeah, the hope was short-lived.
So I do think Ellington's worth rostering just because I think he can still have value in some weeks where you expect the Cardinals to be behind or you expect them to, not be able to run the ball with Adrian Peterson, or we've seen Peterson get dinged up the last 2 years. So if he is ever out of the lineup, then I think Ellington goes back to that low-end RB2 flex option.
100%. We have a bunch of questions coming in right now, so I'm just going to kind of feed through the rest, at least not the rest of the injuries, but some of them. Willie Snead is inactive. That's unfortunate. An unfortunate situation there for him. Just looking at my own roster, it looks like Stephon Diggs has been ruled out as well. I think I saw Sam Bradford was also ruled out, so that sucks. Delaney Walker was a surprise add to the injury report on Thursday. It looks like he is good to go against the Cleveland Browns. That's a plus matchup right there for him. I picked up George Kittle actually in this league, and I'm like, I can't start Kittle over Walker this week. Maybe next week.
No, you can't. It's close just because Walker has been dealing with that late add to the injury report. Was it a hamstring, Anthony, or what was it?
Yeah, I think it was something
it's
like that.
It's like a calf or something.
You know what? I can look at
some sort of soft tissue in the leg, but he is. Yeah, they've talked about it on the pods this week in the DFS DJ Nation pod that we've got going here at TFA and the TFA podcast. Delaney Walker is in a fantastic spot this week. The Browns cannot cover the tight end at all. And the guy they've been using on a lot of plays covering the tight end, first-round rookie Jabril Peppers, the safety, is also out today. So they won't be able to cover Delaney Walker. They might not be able to cover Jonnu Smith. I think the Titans might be able to roll this week. Mariota's 1 week healthier, so you'll like that. DeMarco Murray is going to play today, Anthony, or have they announced that yet?
I don't think I've seen anything on Murray. Let me just check real quick.
The last thing I looked is that he was likely to play. So a lot of Derrick Henry owners are sort of
he's active,
kicking the floor. But I do think Derrick Henry's still worth a flex. I think DeMarco Murray's still worth the flex. The last time we had this situation, DeMarco Murray did come into the lineup, and they both played, and Murray was by far the better option. But this week, I think it's a little bit different. This is the second time that the hamstring has bothered DeMarco Murray this season. So I think that they will be a little bit more cautious, but I do think they're both going to get touches. They're both going to be flexible by the end of this game. The Browns are hashtag not good, and they're banged up at key spots. So Danny Shelton is back for them this week in terms of the run defense, but I do think both of those guys are flexible. Both of those guys can get into the end zone, and definitely fire up Mariota, fire up Delaney Walker. And then if you have Decker or Rashard Matthews, this is a good week to use them as well.
I'm a little worried still about Walker, and I don't want to go too far into it, but I mean, he has a calf injury. He has not been good this year. I know the Browns on defense aren't very good, but Jonnu Smith has been increasingly better, so it worries me a little bit. I still don't think I'm going to start Kittle over him, but Kittle is quickly climbing up the charts. Tight end position, you really can't stick to your guns at tight end at any given year. It just doesn't happen. Any tight end at any point in time can just explode. So,
yeah, at the moment, Anthony, it sounds like you got two tight end ones, which is crazy to think about in a position that's so depleted. But I mean, the way they've been using Kittle, he's getting more and more volume every week. Last week, I know he only had 4 catches for 46 yards, but he did have, I think, twice that many targets. I think he got 8 targets. And so, yeah, the Dallas can't cover the middle of the field. So I like Kittle this week as well. I think just in terms of myself, I've got him sort of as a back-end tight end one this week. So if he's out there and you need some tight end help, then grab Kittle if you can. And the quarterback switch, you like that as well. It's been banged over the head, but I'm going to go for it one more time. New quarterback for the Niners, C.J. Beathard and George Kittle, both played at Iowa last year. So they definitely have chemistry. They definitely have chemistry, and it showed, on the field last week when he came in. And Kittle was doing better before that with Hoyer too. So Kittle's been consistent no matter who's been at quarterback. I think he's a good play at tight end the rest of the season and this week. I understand your concerns about Walker, Anthony, and if he doesn't do much this week against the Browns, I think it might be smart to try to move him or and roll with Kittle if you need to, just because, like you said, he has been more disappointing than people wanted him to be. And this week against the Browns, it's such a good matchup that going into their Week 8 bye, I think, you might have to at least go with Kittle for the time being, or see if you can move Walker for somebody that still believes in him.
Yeah, if you can trade a tight end, that's an extremely difficult situation at this point in time.
I don't know. Some people are pretty desperate, myself included.
Let's get into some of these questions here. Andrew Hankins is joining us once again. Welcome back, AJ. My buddy IRL, so good to see you back. I don't know if this is a question for our league, and I don't play you this week, so I don't care. He needs a flex in a PPR league. Tyrell Williams or Marlon Mack. I know that Ryan said it's easily Mack, but he also asked for waiver options. So AJ said the waiver options are Sanu, Humphreys, Decker, and Beasley. So it'd be pick up one of those guys and plug them in, or start a Tyrell Williams or a Marlon Mack.
Some nice options there, some nice options. If you don't want to drop anybody, I think that going with Mack is what I would do. It's very close for me, just because
Jaguars defense.
They've been using Mack more and more. The Jaguars haven't been able to stop the run, regardless of how amazing their pass rush and their secondary has been. And then it does worry me a little bit. Who was he deciding between? I'm sorry, with Mack?
Tyrell Williams, yeah.
That's right, Tyrell Williams. Tyrell Williams has been in a couple of smash spots this year and not done much with them. One of the better games he had was against Denver. He had one nice catch against Denver, but You don't like to start wide receivers against the Broncos. Tyrell Williams has been inconsistent at best, and it really sucks because that was somebody I believed in a lot this year, regardless of Keenan Allen returning and all that. But he just hasn't seen the volume. He hasn't seen the massive amount of targets. And Mike Williams is coming back now as well. So that's another small ding in terms of volume for Tyrell Williams. So if you don't need to drop anybody, I think I would be fine going with Mac. He does have the upside of scoring a touchdown every time they give him the ball. He's getting more involved week by week. And I think this game script, without Robert Turbin, who was just put on IR, for people that don't know, they were using Turbin as the third down back when he was been healthy. But now with injured reserve, they did move up Josh Ferguson, who's not much more than a scat back from the practice squad. He served that role for a few games down the stretch last season for the Colts. But I do think they're getting Mac more and more involved week by week. I think he's flex worthy until otherwise. If you do want to explore the waivers, I do think that Decker's worth starting this week. We just mentioned how bad the Browns are at covering anybody. And there was one more. Oh, Mohamed Sanu. Everyone against the Patriots as well. Everyone does well against the Patriots. Running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks. Everyone does well against the Patriots. I think the Falcons have been slightly disappointing so far for people that own Falcons, especially Matt Ryan. I think we were all naive if we thought that this offense would do anything but take a big step backwards. But Mohamed Sanu, he's healthy now by all accounts, ready to play tonight. And I do think against the Patriots, this is a great spot. In the past, the one thing the Patriots usually do is try to take away your best option in the passing game, try to take away Julio Jones, try to take away maybe Tevin Coleman out of the backfield, things like that. So guys like Gabriel, guys like Mohamed Sanu, even if the Patriots could stop anyone, which they can't, I still think those guys would be a good play against the Patriots defenses of old. So I like Sanu this week. I like his touchdown upside. I think he's going to see a nice target share just because they're going to have to keep up with Tom Brady. That's the other thing that doesn't get mentioned often enough is this Patriots defense gives up so many yards and points because the other team is trying to catch up the whole game. They're trying to keep pace with the Patriots.
Well, you got to pick one here. So you're picking Sanu?
I do think that I would go with Sanu. But if you're concerned about his injury, then I don't mind. I don't mind picking up Decker. But I do like Sanu the most if you need somebody off the waivers. But if you like your roster the way it is, I think you can flex Mac this week and get somewhere between 6 and 26 points from Mac.
Yeah, I usually stick with the running back in these situations, but when it's a backup running back, it's a little tougher situation to call.
Right. I know you like you some volume, Anthony.
Well, but this is the thing, though. The Jaguars are, their defense has been okay, but like you said, their pass defense, they're allowing 130 rushing yards a game at this point. And yes, Frank Gore is probably going to get most of that. But Marlon Mack has been getting better and better. Like you said, Robert Turbin's on IR. I really like Decker and Sanu's matchups as well. I probably wouldn't start Sanu. I don't trust that guy at this point. I'm just too into Decker, though, so I can't, give unbiased advice on whether or not to start Eric Decker at this point, I don't think. So I would probably stick with Marlon Mack. Maybe pick up one of those other guys and drop Tyrell Williams. I don't think Williams is really worthy of a hold anymore. That offense has been struggling. Even Keenan Allen's not really doing much, so I don't know. When you got other guys who are starting to get the hang of an offense or offense is starting to get back into a groove, I think you got to go with them. More questions coming in fast, though, so we're going to have to move a little quicker, I think. King says the Titans will be winning early, but I think he had a question as well. Kirk Cousins or Marcus Mariota? It's Cousins all day for me, man.
Ooh, for me, that's pretty close. I think Cousins is definitely more dependable. I kid you not, I have them 6th and 7th of the quarterbacks that haven't played yet. So for me, it's Mariota by just a hair. But I do think that Cousins is the safer play just because of the volume. The Eagles do get Sidney Jones back this week. It's looking like he will play, and that improves their secondary a huge amount. Anytime you get your best corner back from injury, it just everyone else down the lineup slots down one more, and every matchup is a little bit easier for the defense. So I like that a little bit. Kirk Cousins has also played historically slightly worse to pretty worse on the road. This game is in Philadelphia. One of his worst games of the season was week 1 against Philadelphia at home.
Yep.
He had a lot of turnovers. Did not look good in that game. And then, like I talked about Mariota a little bit, the Browns can't stop anyone. I do think that the Titans' defense is poor enough that this game could be close, though. With Deshaun Kaiser coming back into the lineup, we'll see how that plans out. But the Browns are at home, so I do like them being able to score against the Titans' defense. The Colts put up 20-some-odd points last week against the Titans. The Titans are not good defensively.
No.
So I do like Mariota's upside and his floor. Kirk Cousins just worries me a little bit against that tough defense. But like I said, that he's my, outside of Carr and Alex Smith, who just played, those are my 6th and 7th best plays this week. So you're really splitting hairs.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that week 1 matchup there. And you know what? Philly's secondary has been awful, so it's easy to get pulled into that trap of, oh man, their secondary is bad. Let's go with Cousins. Mariota's back a week healthier. A Cleveland Browns defense that, while I would like to say is good and is getting better, we haven't really seen that too much yet. Myles Garrett has been a beast and he's been a force, but he can't do it by himself.
That's true for sure.
So I would probably lean towards you with Mariota. It's a really close one. He does come back with a follow-up of Marcus Mariota or Carson Wentz. I don't think you can bench Carson Wentz at this point.
Oh no, yeah, I think you do Carson Wentz above both of those guys. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. 5, 6, and 7. I've got Wentz, Mariota, and Cousins.
Perfect. All right. Hankins has come back with another question here. Actually, oh my gosh, there's so many questions. Okay, PK for Truth. He wants the Saints or the Titans D with my Cards and Rams playing each other, my normal streaming D picks. I had the Titans defense, and I switched it to the Saints. Now, that could come back to bite me, but Titans defense scored 5 points last week in a plus matchup. Here they go again with another plus matchup. I don't see any good signs out of that defense, whereas the Saints have looked remarkably better than they have in any time I remember watching them. So I went with the Saints going against Brett Hundley over the Titans going against Deshaun Kaiser.
I gotta agree with you there, Anthony. If you're looking for a Brett Hundley believer, you will not find one in myself. I don't usually like to start defenses that are on the road unless they're elite, but the Saints have been playing like a great defense the last few weeks. They've held your poor Dolphins, Anthony, to zip, zilch, nada, nothing. They've also been turning out sacks and points. They scored defensive touchdowns last week against the Lions. So you like their upside there. They're getting turnovers, they're getting sacks, and they're holding teams. Last week, the Lions 2 of their 38 points, 2 touchdowns of that was scored by the Lions defense. So it's not like they just gave up 38 points to the Lions. You can't start them. And ESPN did, for those who don't know, this season, I'm not sure about Yahoo, but ESPN did change their defensive scoring so that turnover touchdowns and special teams touchdowns don't count against their defensive scoring.
Oh, really?
So the pick six that Drew Brees threw and things like that don't count against the Saints defense.
Right.
Not that you expect Brees to do that all the time, but just for anybody that was misreading the box score last week and said, 38 points. Oh no. It was actually 24 points is all they gave up.
Well, once I saw the weather too, it is pouring in Green Bay.
Pouring rain.
Absolutely pouring. That's a defensive
and you like
dream
defenses
right
in the rain.
Yep.
I know Kevin doesn't think weather matters. He hates when we talk about weather, but it does a little bit,
especially for a young quarterback.
What is he, a third year, fourth year quarterback? I think third year quarterback.
I don't think he has any starts under his belt, does he?
No starts under his belt. We've just seen him a little bit in the preseason and a little bit last week, in which he threw 3 interceptions. So I I definitely think the Saints can pick Hundley off a couple times. I think he's going to have to force a lot of things, especially going against Drew Brees.
Right.
That offense is going to score nonstop against a terrible Packers secondary that's banged up again. It seems like every week they're missing a couple pieces, whether it's corner, safety, or both. They are healthier up front with Mike Daniels, but I definitely don't think the Packers are going to be able to stop the Saints, and I don't think that like I said, I do think that there's a chance the Titans and Browns can get into kind of a shootout type of game. Just because the Titans defense is pretty bad. I understand wanting to start teams against the Browns. DeShone Kizer has been a turnover machine when he's been in the lineup, but I do think it's safer to go with the Saints. I don't buy this Brett Hundley is going to be able to save the Packers season type of hype.
So let's go back to the tight ends now for a minute. Hankins asks if ASJ, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who's been a huge part of this Jets offense in the past couple weeks. We haven't seen the fantasy outcome yet, but we've seen, he's extremely active. Fantasy owners would have had a huge day last week if that call did not happen. An egregious, #Ryan brand there, an egregious turnover where, I don't know, he had crossed the goal line with the ball in his arms, and then for whatever reason, they reviewed it and said that it came out of his arms and it was a touchback or something like that. Like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, it was quite terrible. I'm sure everyone's seen the play. He bobbled the ball a little bit going across the pylon. Never lost possession, in my opinion. In terms of the NFL rulebook, I think he never lost possession. So, for one, it should have been a touchdown. Obviously, it wasn't. But then they called it a fumble instead, which, for some reason, the arcane NFL rulebook, if you fumble it at the 2-yard line, you get the ball at the 2-yard line if it goes out of bounds, and you get to the next play. But if you fumble it at the pylon, for some reason, the NFL thinks that's such an egregious thing that you would do that they turn the ball over to the other team. The NFL, who values highlights and explosive plays and reaching out and diving and all these things that you see on SportsCenter and everywhere, that these things that drive the NFL viewership, they want that to happen less. Because if you fumble the ball, then it goes to the other team. But if you fumble it on the 2-yard line and it goes out of bounds, you keep the ball and it's second down.
And it begs the question, why not just do a reverse touchback? Give them the ball on the 25, right?
Exactly.
Or something. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense to flip possession. And because of that, in terms of fantasy, that's why it was so terrible, that's an 8-point swing for Austin. Well, an 8.1 point swing.
Yeah.
But just because you lose the 1 yard and you lose 6 points for the touchdown and 2 points for the fumble. So that was a terrible, terrible call. I could sit and talk about it all day long. So we've got to move on.
We went off on a rant here. But it's ASJ versus Ingram.
I do like ASJ this week. A little bit over Evan Ingram, just because the Seahawks have in the past have not been the best tight end matchup, but this year against your poor Dolphins, Anthony, 27th ranked in terms of fantasy points allowed to the tight end. They haven't really been able to cover the tight end all season. The Seahawks not much better at 18th, but they've only allowed 1 touchdown to the tight end in 6 games. But I mean, I think those are both good matchups. Those are both good tight ends. Those are both tight end ones. So it's splitting hairs a little bit, but I do lean ASJ just a bit.
Absolutely, me too.
Sterling Shepard, for those who don't know, is likely to come back this afternoon. So that might shift a little bit of targets away from Evan Ingram, just because they do like to put Shepard in the slot as well. I do think you'll see mostly outside work tonight, just because they got nobody. They got Roger Lewis and a bag of potato chips. That's what they got. in terms of wide receivers. So I think they'll use Shepard a lot on the outside, but I think it decreases Evan Ingram's volume just a little bit. Just a little
bit. Kevin has joined us in the chat here, throwing out some gross takes. I'm not even going to read them. I don't want people to
What's going on, Kev?
Don't even worry. Don't even worry about it. Don't worry about it. How about Robbie Anderson? I think I would like Robbie Anderson against Miami too. Listen, it's not going to be the same outcome as the first one. I don't think. It's not going to be a dominant day for the Jets again. These teams always play each other hard. It was crazy to me that happened in the first place. The Jets, who were 0-2 and had no hope, coming in and crushing Miami. Well, not even coming in. Miami going there and they crushed them. For good reason. Miami was playing horrible. They're playing a little bit better now. A heck of a performance last week against Atlanta, coming back from a 17-0 deficit to come back and win that game. So, their confidence is high. Not having Devontae Parker is a huge blow. It's an unfortunate blow, but I think we're going to try to run the ball. That front seven always gives us fits, so we got to do more than dink and dunk passes. We need Cutler to throw that ball down the field. That secondary is not very good. Take advantage of it. That being said, I still think Robbie Anderson, ASJ, good plays, even with Miami's defense playing better at this point.
I agree. I gotta agree with that. I think they're both pretty good plays. I do like Anderson a little bit more than Kearse, just because Anderson's upside is a bit higher in my opinion. He does see more deep targets downfield and things like that. So against the Dolphins, who have been better, but I do think is Byron Maxwell officially out this week?
I don't even know that. So the thing with Max, I don't know. First to answer the question,
but I know Howard is playing, so that's good. Howard's finally healthy. He's been playing well. But in terms of their number 2 corner, the Dolphins have not been great, and I do think Xavier Howard is going to be on Kearse for a lot of this game. So we'll see how that plays out. But I do think the Jets will have to throw the ball. I think Miami's going to be able to score points. The game is in Miami. Is that correct?
Yep.
So so I do think they'll try to run the ball with Jay Ajayi. That seems to work over the last year and a half. When the Dolphins pound the rock with Ajayi and give him 18 to 25 carries, they play better. The offense opens up more, and they win more games. So I think Gase is going to stick with that. They know what Cutler is at this point. They know that he's limited and is going to make poor decisions if they have him attack the ball downfield too often. So I do think that Ajayi is going to see another week where he gets a good amount of carries. And I do think the Jets are going to have to keep up and throw downfield with Robbie Anderson and ASJ.
Yeah, I think Maxwell was doing so bad he got demoted. So he's actually the 3rd corner now. The rookie Tankersley is our 2nd corner. And
right.
He's got rookie blues. That's how it happens. You just got to let him work through it, and I think he'll get remarkably better. It's crazy to me that we have Xavier Howard, who was a rookie last year, and now Tankersley, who's a rookie this year, starting at corner. I like to see that. So let's get back to some of these questions.
One more thing, Anthony, before we move on from this game is that I don't like any of the Jets' running backs this week. I think if you have to start one, it's Powell. But all 3 are healthy, which hasn't happened in a while. The Miami defense is very good against the run, top 5 run defense there. So if they do see a lot of work, it'll be in the passing game, and that's what has me leaning Powell just a little bit. But I don't really like any of them. I think it's going to be a 3-headed monster. I don't think they're going to stop using McGuire just because both of those guys are back. I think you could see something like a 15-10-5 touch split, which sounds super gross to me against a run defense that's pretty good.
Right. All right, so I'm going to switch over to Ask TFA for a second because we do have some questions coming in there. And Kai, we're going to have to be a little quicker with these. We're 55 minutes before kickoff. So Rivers or Palmer, Hogan or Cooks?
Palmer, and I do think Rivers is okay to play this week despite the Broncos matchup. But I think because of that, you lean Carson Palmer in London there. I don't think this will be a trap game. I think both teams are going to play hard. And with Adrian Peterson, they are trying to run the ball more and more, like we said earlier. But the Rams offense is one of the most explosive in the league, and I don't know that they're going to be able to limit Carson Palmer's pass attempts like they did last week. And Palmer still had a great game last week, even though Adrian Peterson exploded all over lineups. So I do like Palmer a little bit this week. I like Goff in that game too. And I think you can roll with him over Rivers.
Hogan and Cooks, he has 2 open wide receiver positions, so I think he could probably play both of them. He benched Cooper, so that sucks for this week.
Yeah, I started him in one and benched him in another, so kicking myself and patting myself on the back at the same time.
Pick 2 to start. Randall Cobb, Deshaun Jackson, Keenan Allen, Eric Decker.
Ooh, that's interesting. I do like Allen the most, Keenan Allen, that is, just because I think he'll see more of Bradley Roby than he will the other 2 Denver corners. But I mean, it is a tough matchup. But Allen did have a fine game against them week 1. It is in LA this week, instead of in Denver. So I like Allen a little bit. I think that's fine. And you said pick 2. I think. Let's see. I gotta pull this up so that I know what I'm looking at, man. That's so dumb. I can't quite find it. Let's see. I know Randall Cobb was in there. I don't like Cobb this week at all. We've talked a little bit about the Packers, this maybe being a bad spot for them. And I do think Cobb is the third option there in a passing offense that without Aaron Rodgers is decreased so much that it's avoidable in most formats. So I don't like Cobb this week at all. Hundley did have a connection with Devontae Adams last week for a touchdown, and Jordy Nelson is still going to be the number 1 option for this team. So I definitely don't think Cobb is going to see enough volume to be start worthy unless injuries crop up again for one of those 2 guys. And then I'm sorry, Anthony, I just can't find it because you said it was on Ask TFA, right?
It's on Ask TFA, yeah. Okay. It was Cobb, Deshaun Jackson, Keenan Allen, Eric Decker.
That's right. The Buffalo defense has been pretty good against quarterbacks and wide receivers. With Winston's shoulder as banged up as it is, he is going to play for people that were worried about that. But his shoulder is banged up still. I think that'll affect his deep accuracy. I don't know that Deshaun Jackson's in the best spot this week. And we've talked about Decker got more involved last week than he has been all season. Mm-hmm. He like we talked about a week or so ago, the man's not dead. He's just slowly getting worked into the offense, and his quarterback's been broken, So with Mariota a week healthier, a week more of chemistry. Last week, I think he had 8? He led them in yards and targets and receptions in terms of Titans wide receivers last week against the Colts. So I do like Decker against the Browns this week. And I think if you'd rather do Jackson, then that's fine. But I do think Decker is in the better spot. So for me, it'd be Keenan Allen and Eric Decker.
I might go Randall Cobb and Eric Decker just because Keenan Allen's going against Denver. And in the past, I was like, it's not a big deal. Some guys are matchup proof. Against Denver, it's really hard to be matchup proof. Those 2 corners are ridiculous. They don't let up a lot of plays. And Keenan Allen has been struggling without playing against top-of-the-line corners. So I would have to go – Cobb's situation sucks. Let's call it what it is, all right? It's Brett Hundley, but they're going to find ways to get him the ball, I feel like. I feel like Cobb has a little of that Jarvis Landry in him where they'll set up screens and they'll set up short slants and things like that. They'll get him involved. So I'm going to go with Cobb and Decker there. Not a good situation to be in, regardless. Let's get back to the chat here. A lot of questions coming through, guys. Don't worry, we didn't forget about you. McRaven's joining. Welcome, McRaven. He is in our listener league, our PPR listener league.
He is. Doing well, I think.
Yeah. Last year, talked a lot of smack in the draft. This year, he probably missed the draft because we did it so ad hoc, like we did. He has a question
during that Thursday night game.
Yeah. He has a question at running back. Deion Lewis, Ty Montgomery, Bilal Powell. Is Powell playing? Or Duke Johnson? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all 3 of the Jets running backs are playing. Yeah, that's part of why I don't like them. But I think Duke Johnson continues to be the best part of the Browns offense. The Titans defense is not good in most places, but especially against the run. They've given up chunk yardage. They did not look good against the Colts run offense last week, which is not one of the better ones. So I do like Duke Johnson a little bit. And then you said one more, right, Anthony?
I like Duke Johnson the best too, but it's Deion Lewis, Ty Mont, Powell, and Duke Johnson. I'd have to go Johnson here.
Yeah, I'd have to go Johnson. And then if you needed a second one, I do think it's close between Lewis and Montgomery, but you don't like either one of their workloads just because Aaron Jones is going to continue to be involved, and it should be somewhat of a 50-50 split, in my opinion, between Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery. And then Deion Lewis has looked the best Patriot running back for the last couple of weeks, but that can change on a dime. So,
right.
And especially tonight, you've got narrative going in James White and his ridiculous game that he had against the Falcons in the Super Bowl. So I don't know if they might be hearing footsteps or scared of James White this week.
I think it's just narrative.
And Gillislee has looked pretty terrible, but he can fall into the end zone in any game. So I think the Patriots backfield is a mess. At least with Montgomery, you're getting kind of a 50-50 split.
But he just
so I don't know.
One,
I think it's clearly Duke Johnson if you need one.
Yeah. All right, so DeMarco or Ivory?
Ooh, I think Ivory this week. Any other week it would be different, but without Leonard Fournette, we've talked about how much we like Chris Ivory this week. And DeMarco Murray, he is going to play, but last week he played mostly the whole game, but got a little bit dinged up, and Derrick Henry went bananas. Yeah. So I think that can happen in any game now. I think DeMarco Murray is going to be an RB2 the rest of the season. I think he's done being an RB1 just because of health concerns and how well Henry is playing. So yeah. I think they have sort of an embarrassment of riches there, and Murray is going to play this week, but I don't think it's better than Chris Ivory, what he gives you.
I hate to say it, but I agree. I think it's Ivory as well. So McKinnon or DeMarco?
Ooh, that's more interesting just because Brandon Williams for the Ravens run defense is coming back this week, stud defensive lineman for them. So I think they might be able to stop the run a little bit better, but we've talked in the past that McKinnon gets work in the passing game regardless. So if it's a PPR, give me McKinnon. And in a standard, I still think you lean DeMarco just because I think as long as he's healthy, they'll still give him 15 touches and give Derrick Henry 15 touches. So I think it's close, but I do like McKinnon more in a PPR.
Gosh, I don't even know. I would probably agree.
I would
probably agree, yeah, because you just don't know what's going to happen in Tennessee. And then, King said, is DeMarco or Derrick going to get more touches? Who knows, At this point, It depends on the health in there. We may see Derrick.
The problem is who knows.
Yeah, we may see Derrick get more touches just to kind of keep DeMarco healthy. I'm surprised they didn't just keep him out, given they're playing Cleveland. But, hey, I guess you can't take anybody lightly any given Sunday, right?
That's true. If I were the Titans, I would have transitioned by now into Henry being the two down, early down back, and DeMarco being more of that third down back. Use him in 2-minute drills, red zone situations, things like that. Just like you said, to keep him fresh. The man's 29, and he's had seasons where he's had many touches. So he's got a lot of wear and tear in the tires. I think keeping him healthy is a smart thing for the Titans, who have playoff aspirations in a division that's topsy-turvy week to week. And like we said, Murray's still good. He's not. It's not that he's a bad player. It's just that this hamstring injury has been bothering him all season long. Since the preseason, this hamstring injury's been bothering him.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit more about injuries here in a second. Our boy TN is back. Welcome back, TN. He says, let's get ready to rumble. Does anybody still say that? Of course people still say that.
That man's turning up in the chat every week.
Yeah, I was listening to Sirius XM the other night, and they were doing the top sports songs of the 90s. And that was number one right there. Let's get ready to rumble.
Oh, hey, there you go.
It's played everywhere. Everywhere. So he says a wide receiver question and a tight end question. He needs two receivers, Sterling Shepard, Pierre Garçon, and Amendola. It's Shepard and Garçon for me. And then Delaney Walker or Jimmy Graham, which with Delaney's injury, I'd go Graham. What do you think?
For me, it's also Shepard and Garcon, and I think it's a nice situation there, just because the Cowboys secondary has been poor and as bad as we thought it would be all season long, and they also have not been able to stop short passes as well. So I actually like Trent Taylor a little bit this week too. Don't hate me. It's a terrible take, but I do like Trent Taylor a little bit. But
maybe a Madden.
Garcon, I do think you can fire him up. Wide receivers consistently do well against the Cowboys, and then I do like Sterling Shepard just because that's it. They have Roger Lewis, a bag of chips, Sterling Shepard, and Evan Ingram in the passing game. So I think we've seen in the past when Beckham has been out. I think Beckham missed a game last year, and Sterling Shepard did well as far as my recollection. You guys can call us out in the YouTube chat if that's wrong. But I do like Sterling Shepard. But the thing I like most about this is if Shepard is inactive again, you got Amendola playing later tonight, so you can just sub him right in there, just as a what the heck. Maybe he'll catch a touchdown, maybe he'll catch a long pass, kind of a thing. I do think if you can get a piece of this game tonight, go for it.
Yeah.
If you can get a Falcon, if you can get a Patriot. Obviously, you're playing Tom Brady, and you should start Matt Ryan this week too. But if you can, try to wiggle one of those guys into your lineup because I think this is the highest scoring game of the week, and Vegas agrees.
Gosh, it's the Patriots wide receiver situation and running back situation. All the Patriots situations are so tough because they use so many guys. Amendola could just tear it up. I mean, we've seen it from him this season.
Week 1, he had 100 yards.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
So
this is why I don't draft Patriots outside of that are not named Tom Brady. That's it. Just because it's so week to week with them in terms of injuries, in terms of matchup. They use so many guys in so many ways that it's so hard to predict. We had finally thought we figured out that Chris Hogan was a low end wide receiver 1. He was getting so involved. He had a touchdown a jillion games in a row, and last week he burns you. He just straight up was terrible. I think he had was it 30? Oh no, 1 catch for 19 yards. That's what he had last week. And just when we thought we had this figured out and Hogan was a must start, 1 catch for 19 yards. So I think the Patriots are very inconsistent, but I like it. This is in terms of your lineup situation. I like that you can wiggle him in, Amendola in, if Shepard's out.
Of course, Ryan Williams chose the opposite of us, by the way.
Of course.
he went with Danny and Pierre, and he also went with Delaney over Graham. So,
for me, it's Graham. Just because Delaney has been a little bit banged up. The Giants are the only team worse against the tight end than the Browns. And the Giants corners are not terrible when Janoris Jenkins is in the lineup and teams attack them with the tight end. Their linebackers are the worst group in the league. They're worse than the Dolphins, finally, Anthony. They're worse than the Dolphins. In terms of their coverage linebackers. I definitely like Jimmy Graham a lot this week. I think he, outside of Gronk, could be the best tight end play of the week. We talked a lot about Delaney Walker, but I do think Graham is in a great spot.
All right, so lots of questions coming in here. Adam Cahill joins us again. Welcome back, Adam. Good to have you. He is trying to decide between Cooper Kupp and Eric Decker. Before we answer, I would like to tell you that Ryan says Decker and Kevin says Kupp. Adam says he's going to play Kupp, but maybe we can convince him otherwise if you feel that Decker's the better play here.
Well, there's only one thing I need to know, and whether it's a PPR or not.
Correct. PPR.
Okay, then for me, it's Kupp just because I think Sammy Watkins is going to be shadowed by Patrick Peterson the whole game. Patrick Peterson is going to play for people that were worried about that. Watkins has not looked great. I think Robert Woods could have a good game as well. But I do like Cooper Kupp this week against the Cardinals secondary that outside of Patrick Peterson has played very poorly. And then Decker, we talked about how much we like Decker, but for me, because it's a PPR, I do like Kupp a little bit more.
The Rams play the Cardinals, right?
In London. For people that weren't aware, that is a London game, though it will be at the 1
At the
o'clock
1 o'clock
Eastern
hour, yeah.
time window. Yeah, so it'll be a nighttime game, but you'll be watching it in the afternoon. It's going to be weird and freak everyone out.
And Decker versus the Browns.
Yeah, it's close. It's close, but the
Gosh.
PPR is what has me leans there, just because I think you could see some sort of line from Decker, like a 5 catch for 85 yards, and for Cup you could see like an 8 catch for 70 yards. Like it's really close to me,
Yeah.
but I do like Cup just a tiny bit more.
I would actually lean the opposite way. I'd probably lean Eric Decker here, especially with the injury to Delaney Walker. We don't know how that's going to affect him.
That's
And,
true.
it's hard to try to predict that, but we're in the game of predicting. That's why we're fantasy football analysts.
That's fair.
I think
We did go 2-2, so we did not help at all.
Yeah, we didn't help at all. But Adam is a fantasy analyst himself. He can figure it out. I think he's going to go with Cup. Martin Cole asked Gilly, which I believe is Gillisley, or Taylor Gabriel in a PPR. He thinks Gillisley's due for a multiple TD game. I would still tend to avoid, like we talked about before, the Patriots situation altogether.
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
Listen, we did talk about it, but wouldn't that be the most Patriot thing ever? As Dion Lewis has been playing the best, James White had that terrific game against him in the Super Bowl, and then Mike Gillisley has 2 touchdowns.
It would be a very Patriots thing. That would be the
most Patriot thing ever. But I do like Taylor Gabriel a bit more. The Patriots have been beat consistently by wide receivers this season. So I think Gillisley is facing the tougher defense, which is weird to say about the Patriots, but it's true at this point. And yeah, like we said, you just can't depend on Gillisley. I think he always has a chance to go off in our face. But in PPR, I think, let me see, I'm not sure if Mike Gillisley even has a catch this season. So I think in PPR it's not close. I think it is Taylor Gabriel just because he does catch the ball. But let's see. Yeah, Mike Gillisley does not have a single catch. I'm not sure if he has a target, but he has 0 catches. So
yeah, I think
that's not something I want in PPR at the moment.
There was a little back and forth here about what TN could do. They said he said he could start both Walker and Graham, but he would have to bench one of McKinnon, Anderson, or Jones. I certainly wouldn't bench any of them. I think Aaron Jones is going to be just fine today in the pouring rain with a rookie quarterback. CJ Anderson's hard to bench because he is CJ Anderson. He's playing the Chargers.
Yeah. And he's playing the Chargers, who have been one of the worst run defenses in the league, right there with the Los Angeles Rams. Go figure. Teams, in sunny LA can't get in the trenches and stop the run. I don't know what that is, Anthony. I don't know what that's about. But I do think CJ Anderson's in a great spot. The Broncos have got to start running the ball, or they're going to keep losing games. And I think Mike McCoy is going to figure that out, or be forced to figure that out. And their losses, it was Cecil Lammy this week had a stat. Covers the Broncos, does a lot of good stuff at Football Guys and stuff like that. And I think it was every time CJ Anderson gets the ball 20 times, the Broncos have won every single game but one. So if they want to win, you got to assume the coaches are going to get back to running the football with CJ Anderson, especially against the Chargers team that has been atrocious against the run. And, I don't know that you can bench Aaron Jones just because I do think he's still going to see a lot of touches. If you wanted to for one of the tight ends, I think that would be okay. But I don't think it's. Well,
I mean, all we've done is
tantalizing or anything. I think it's okay. Yeah.
All we've done is talk about how bad the tight end position is, and then we're going to try to tell somebody to bench a running back for a tight end. That's just not going to happen.
I agree.
So Kev's going on and on and on about Benny Fowler here. He's starting this week for Denver.
Oh, yeah.
because Emmanuel
Oh
Sanders
yeah.
is out. But I want to preface this with something. The last time Kev was this adamant about a wide receiver having a huge day, it was Ricardo Lewis a few weeks ago, and he scored a big fat 0. Not the same situation. I get it. But listen, you don't just slide people in. Benny Fowler's not Emmanuel Sanders. He could have a decent day, but I don't think it's going to be a 15, 20-point performance. Call me crazy here. Denver looked bad last week against the Giants too, remember?
That's true. I won't call you crazy, Anthony. But here are a list. They have said that Emmanuel Sanders for the moment is week to week. So they ruled him out pretty early this week. So it's not guaranteed
Definitely a good buy then.
that he'll even come back next week. So here are Benny Fowler's matchups for the next 3 games. The Chargers, who outside of Casey Hayward can't cover wide receivers, and Casey Hayward is going to be on Demaryius Thomas for almost the whole game. The Chiefs, who again outside of Marcus Peters can't cover wide receivers, so you like Fowler's upside in that game. And then after that, they have the Eagles, who Sidney Jones has come back and will probably play tomorrow night and definitely by week 9. Outside of Sidney Jones, I keep saying Sidney Jones. I keep switching him and Ronald Darby, the rookie corner that hasn't played yet for the Eagles, and Ronald Darby. I keep switching that up. That's like the 5th time I've done it. But anyway, Ronald Darby should come back tomorrow night and definitely will be back by the time the Broncos play the Eagles. So you like that matchup with Ronald Darby probably being on Demaryius Thomas the whole game if Emmanuel Sanders is still gone. And then after that, they get the Patriots, and you start every wide receiver you can against the Patriots. So I think the Fowler thing might be a little more than just this week. So that's part of why I like Fowler so much this week. I agree with Kev. This could be a great spot. Some people have been trying to talk up Sunshine Jordan Taylor, but I think that's a trap you don't want to fall into. We have seen Benny Fowler score touchdowns this week. He's been productive on his targets. He just hasn't seen a lot of targets because when you have Demaryius Thomas on one side and Emmanuel Sanders on the other side, you don't really need to throw the ball to Benny Fowler. So, and despite that, he still had a couple of touchdowns. And I think those touchdowns were week 1 against the Chargers. I could be wrong about that, but that sounds right.
Anything could sound right if you say it with confidence.
Right. That's like the least
confident. Like he had 2 touchdowns against the Chargers.
That's the least confident voice that I can come up with.
Oh,
3 catches, 21 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Chargers. So I think he could. There's a little bit of narrative going there. There's a little bit of opportunity going there. And Benny Fowler is not. He's a red zone option, but he's not awful. He's not terrible. He's not Ricardo Lewis. I'll give him that.
Perhaps I'm wrong on that, so maybe he will.
Is a bit better, but I do like Benny Fowler this week as like a wide receiver 3. So
fair enough. I may have to go out and look for him myself. I did not listen. You learned me something here. So now that I've been learned, let's move on to another question from TN. He has to sit 1.5-point PPR. T.Y. Hilton, Eric Decker, or Kelvin Benjamin. Ryan answered with start T.Y. and Decker. For me, I'm sitting Decker, and I would start Benjamin and Hilton.
For me, I agree with Ryan there. Just because the Bears defense has been tough at home this season. They're not a pushover. Wide receivers have been able to, as far as the wide receivers have done the best in terms of positions against the Bears. But I do think that with Devin Funchess playing the way that he's playing and with Benjamin's knee bothering him, I think those are reasons that you can sit him. I do think Benjamin has been playing well, this season, better than, people were making fun of him in the offseason for his weight and all these things. But he's still able to jump up and catch the ball. He's still a red zone option. But I think it's splitting hairs between him and Decker. I do think you can't sit T.Y. Hilton just because he's the only option in the passing game for them outside of Dante Moncrief, who is not going to be able to separate from these Jags corners. I think T.Y. Hilton has a little bit of of speed and a little bit of route running that he can use to get away from the Jags corners. But Dante Moncrief definitely can. So I don't know if he catches more than half of them, but I do think T.Y. Hilton's going to get a ton of targets this week just because he'll be the most open in terms of those guys. So I don't think you can bench Hilton. And I understand if you'd rather bench Decker, but I do really like his spot against the Browns this week. I think Kelvin Benjamin is the riskier play with a higher upside than Decker, just because of that knee injury. They might, that could crop up at any moment. These guys that come into games with injuries, it's hard to trust them.
For sure. All right. We're not being very helpful right now, Kai.
We're not.
Why is he didn't score 0? He absolutely scored 0.
He had one catch for 11 yards.
No. Ricardo Lewis, the first week that Kev was on him, he scored 0. 0.
No, he did one catch.
No, he didn't.
I'm not kept up on this.
Nothing. All right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he had one catch. Doesn't matter. Ryan's on my side. He's always on my side. Kai, you could run off with Kev. How about you and Kev go run off?
Listen, we will take our Ricardo Lewis shares.
Take your Ricardo Lewis.
We will ride them to the championship, Anthony, and that's just what's going to happen. It's going to be Ryan and I in the Yahoo Listener League that we have at TFA.
Dude, I'm getting murdered
both
in that league, by the way.
I have Ricardo Lewis on my team. I was able to get him before Kevin's team needed him. Kevin's team's pretty stacked at wide receiver. It doesn't really need Ricardo Lewis, but
yeah, it doesn't speak well for me and Ryan, considering I'm 1-4, he's 3-2, and then you and Kev are both 4-1. You know what though? I don't want to hear it. Kev actually was really bad in this league last year, but you guys drafted well this year. I have a good start. This week against Matt's Meatheads, who's a tough play. But look, these guys are trolling each other still in the chat. They're not even on the show this week, and they're continuing the back and forth. It's quite hilarious. Kev's in a timeout. Apparently, Ryan says the adults are talking.
That's funny. That's weird.
Oh, would you start Fowler over Mack or Sanu?
Over Sanu. For Mack, it's closer for me, but I think I would start Fowler over Mack.
You'd start Fowler over Mack?
Mm-hmm.
The wide receiver over the running back? So that always worries me. But you're right, it's a backup running back.
Well, in terms of me, it's a in a volume situation. You usually like the running back, but I do think Fowler's going to see more volume, just being the second wide receiver. And that's the other thing about Denver is the second wide receiver is so valuable for them because their tight ends are garbage. Their tight ends are usually hot garbage. So A.J. Derby, Jeff Hireman, Virgil Green, these guys are not separating from defenders. So the wide receiver 2 is so much more involved in Denver than other places because they don't really utilize the tight end.
That's a good point. They did when Peyton was there.
They did when Peyton was there, but they utilized the whole field when Peyton was there.
Yeah, everything. Trevor Siemian is no Peyton Manning. Don't confuse that statement one bit right there.
Definitely not.
I have a question on Twitter. It's a bit tough for me to answer here. I'm not sure. Frank Gore or Nelson Aguilar in a half-point PPR? Aguilar has been a little frustrating, but has been a really good receiver.
That's one of my favorite questions that I've ever had to try and answer. So we talked about the Jags' run defense being bad. I think Gore is in a pretty good spot, but Nelson Aguilar is also in a pretty good spot. He's been playing very well. He's sort of become the number 2/number 2A, 2B there with Alshon Jeffrey behind Zach Ertz in terms of the passing game for them. So you like the way Aguilar's been playing. I like Aguilar's upside as well. He can always catch a 30-yard touchdown for them. He did last Thursday when they played. He has in multiple games he's had touchdowns. So I like Aguilar a lot. I don't know. I think this week is what leans me towards Gore just because of the matchup. Gore has a pretty good matchup at home against the Jags run defense. And Josh Norman is not going to play this week. I think they've already ruled him out in terms of tomorrow night. And as weird as that sounds, I think that's a downgrade for Aguilar, just because I think Jeffrey is going to have a much better game now that he doesn't have to deal with Josh Norman there. So I think Alshon Jeffrey becomes the number 2 option in the passing game behind Zach Ertz. So I do think that it's Gore just a little bit. I know it's a half PPR, but I do expect Gore to catch a little bit more passes today than he has in the past. Just we talked about Robert Turbin being moved to IR. So I like Gore's matchup. I think he is a good bet to get a touchdown this week. I think with Aguilar, you're looking at more boom or bust. So it's close to me. I do lean Gore in a vacuum, but if you need 20 points, if you're behind this week and you're looking for a big game, Gore's not your guy. Aguilar has a chance to do that. If you're favored this week and you just need 8 to 12 points, that's all you need, then Gore's your man. Gore's your man.
The more points, the better, man. You always need more points.
That's true, but you gotta think about chance of outcomes. You can't start. You can't have 20 points from every player every week.
Yeah.
Unless it's a quarterback.
I was leaning Gore myself. I do like Aguilar. I think but like you said, he's very volatile. I mean, he'll have 1 week of 30 and 1 week of none. So it's Gore. You're gonna get your 8 to 12 points. So good point there on what your matchup looks like.
Yeah, I gotta say again, we're not helping people, Anthony. I have in 2 leagues, I have both of them, and in one of them, Gore's on the bench, and one of them, Aguilar's on the bench. So, but like I said, it just comes down to a matchup. I do think a lot of times these guys can go either way, but you gotta think about your team and what you need. Do you need a Monday night chance to win it all because you've been behind all Sunday? Or do you just need something consistent, something that you're gonna get from Gore? You're gonna get 50 to 80 yards, and you might get a touchdown.
Maybe it's a chance.
There's a chance.
All right, we got 2 more here in Ask TFA. This one from Alexander Katz. He says, "Should you play Hogan in the Super Bowl rematch or Michael Thomas in the rain against Green Bay?"
Ooh, I think just because of the inconsistency of both players, I think you lean with the guy who's going to see the most volume, and I think that's Michael Thomas. Even in the rain, they've announced Willie Snead is inactive for this game. They've pulled him, so they've got Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, Kev's boy Brandon Coleman, and then Tommy Lee Lewis. So it's not the best options outside of Michael Thomas in the passing game. I think that the Saints are going to be able to lean on the run today, but I do think that the Packers secondary is so bad that Michael Thomas still winds up with a good game, even in the rain, even in a positive game script for the Saints. So I do like Michael Thomas. We talked about how boom and bust these Patriots wide receivers are, and it's not their fault. It's just that's how the Patriots play. That's how they exploit matchups. That's how they win ball games. In terms of their boom or bust floor, let's see. Hogan has had one game where he had a catch for 19 yards, and that's it. One game where he had a catch for 8 yards, and that's it. And then in terms of Michael Thomas, I think he's also had a couple of bad games. Let's see, Michael Thomas.
He's had a rough season so far, I think.
But his worst games have been 3 catches for 11 yards last week, going against Darius Slay for a lot of that game. And the Packers didn't have to throw. They were up 45-10 in that game. Drew Brees only had 1 passing touchdown, and I think he had like less than 200 yards. That sounds wrong, but I think that's what happened. And then 5 catches for 45 yards was his second worst game.
Before that, though, he was dynamite. I mean, the 3 weeks prior, right?
Right. I think this is a bounce back spot for Michael Thomas. The Packers secondary is bad and unhealthy.
I think it's Thomas all the way. I mean, if we went back to before this season and we were sitting here having this conversation,
right?
It wouldn't even been close, right? It'd be Michael Thomas all day. So I think you got to stick with it.
For sure.
All right, the next one up here. Should I consider benching Adams this week for Demaryius Thomas in a standard league?
Yes. Do it. Log out. and you're good.
Yeah, I agree. Take care of
I
business.
talked about how much I don't like the Packers this week. Adams did have a touchdown with Hundley last week, so they obviously have a connection there. But I don't think it's better than Simeon to Demaryius Thomas, especially without Emmanuel Sanders. I think Demaryius Thomas could be a lock for 10-plus targets this week, even with seeing a lot of Casey Hayward. I do think this is a good play for Demaryius Thomas.
Absolutely. All right, so we got another one real quick. They're coming in hot. Jeff Menard in a standard league, he needs two: Chris Ivory, C.J. Anderson, or Joe Mixon, or two of them actually.
It's Ivory and Anderson for me. Joe Mixon is still not getting. There was one game where he got the lion's share of the touches, but Hill and Bernard are still healthy. I don't think this is the best matchup this week against the Steelers. Just because I think this is a good spot for the Steelers. We haven't really talked much about this game, but I do think this is a good play, good week for Martavis Bryant. I think the Steelers are going to showcase him, whether they're trying to trade him or not. He's been adamant that he wants the ball more. They came out, I think, yesterday saying that they will try to get him more involved. And I think this is a good spot for the Steelers. The Bengals corners are pretty banged up. Adam Jones won't play. Not that he's been playing the best football of his very, very long career. I had to double check that when I saw Adam Jones on the injury report. I was like, Pac-Man is still playing football.
Yeah, he's been around forever.
Going on? The man is twice my age. What is he doing? What is he doing still playing football?
Oh man.
But yeah, and TJ Anderson, we talked about the Broncos are going to get back to running the football. The Chargers defense cannot stop any running back so far this season. And so, yeah, I definitely like CJ Anderson over Joe Mixon. And yeah, Ivory, we talked about Ivory's in a great spot this week. The Jags are just going to give whoever is the ball. If Ivory gets hurt, they're going to give Corey Brandt the ball 20 times.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, Joe Mixon's been getting touches, 18, 17, 15 over the last 3 games with the 7 receptions in that same span. But for all the talk about how talented this kid was, and if people could look past his off the field history for his talent, we haven't seen it yet. Yeah, he's averaging 3.4 yards per carry, 1.7 against Cleveland, and then 3.4 again against Buffalo. So we're still waiting to see it.
Yeah.
With that being said, I agree with you. Chris Ivory, C.J. Anderson. I can't believe we have so much Ivory suggestions this week. But
he's a hot pickup. He's a hot pickup. That's what happens when dudes bust their ankle. Then it opens up the opportunity for other players.
100%. I said before the season, my favorite coaching move was Doug Marrone to Jacksonville. I thought that dude did really good things in Buffalo. He got ousted because he was loyal, right? He wanted his coaches to get extensions. Buffalo wouldn't do it. So here he comes down to Jacksonville, takes over that team, and Jacksonville looking pretty good this year. If only they could get themselves a quarterback.
They should trade for Andrew Luck. That's what they should do.
Yeah. So this tight end question came back. We actually talked. This was the first topic of the day. Delaney Walker versus George Kittle. Dropping Science just joining us here. He has the same exact question. Now, we came to the conclusion that it was Walker before. After 1 hour and 15 minutes of deliberation, do we continue to feel like it's Walker?
I think it's the same. We did talk a little bit about it might be Kittle rest of season, depending on Jonnu Smith and how much he's involved. And the Titans do have a bye next week, so you'll have to go with Kittle then. But I think it's Delaney Walker still.
Gosh, I'm really, really wanting to play Kittle. I can't even tell you how much I want to play Kittle.
Well, I'm starting him in a couple of leagues. I don't hate that.
But Walker's sitting there playing Cleveland. It's not like Tennessee's offense has looked amazing though.
No.
Gosh.
In a league devoid of tight ends, it's nice to have 2 tight end ones though.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Well, my opponent does too. My opponent's playing Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz, so he already played Kelce. So,
dang.
Yeah. Maybe I should play both. No, I could play Kittle over
what's your wide receiver situation?
Well, so receiver, I'm okay. I got Keenan Allen, which is a tough one. I did just pick up Fowler so I could plug in Fowler if Allen for whatever reason can't go. That's
true. He is questionable, and so is Melvin Gordon both with shoulder injuries, but we do expect him to play.
So receiver situation's rough though, because I have Keenan Allen and Randall Cobb. But I did have Tyreek Hill on Thursday night who put up a whopping
Mhm.
22.5, so that's feeling good
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I have two flex spots, though, where I have Duke Johnson and Buck Allen. So Buck Allen, I could see an opportunity there to swap him out for a Kittle or a Fowler. But again, that's a
Mhm.
tough call.
I do like Buck Allen a little bit. We haven't much talked about the Ravens side of things. Jeremy Maclin is out once again, so that's a small uptick for Mike Wallace. But against a lot of Xavier Rhodes, I don't know that you want to start Mike Wallace this week against the Vikings. And so I do think that Buck Allen is the best weapon in the passing game there for them, similar to the Browns and Duke Johnson. In terms of Macklin not being there, I do think he's the best option for Joe Flacco. I did write a little bit about this game in my weekly hot takes this week, and the hot take was that Case Keenum would have more points than the Ravens' offense in terms of fantasy. So that'll tell you all. That'll tell you all that I think about this game and what the Ravens are going to be able to do against the Vikings. But
Yeah, I don't even want to play Buck Allen. I'll be 100% honest with you.
yeah,
But I feel
I don't know if you can do it. Start him over Kittle just because we talked about running backs being starting running backs being pretty safe in terms of touches. But we have seen games before where they just stopped using Buck Allen, including that London game. So.
Yeah, I mean, over the last 4 games, Buck Allen has one good game where he fell into the end zone at Oakland.
Yep. For me, I would start Kittle over Randall Cobb, but I know you like Cobb a little bit this week.
I can't. I don't even have that option.
But for me, that's what I would do. Oh, you don't?
No, because I have 3 wide receiver positions and 2 flex positions.
So interesting.
I'd have to slide Fowler in for Cobb.
That's what I would do.
And then slide, if I put Cobb over Allen, I'd have to slide Kittle over Allen. It doesn't matter what I do. One of them is going to be the wrong move. Yeah. Okay, something I do.
Whatever you end up deciding, it's going to be wrong. That's just how it goes.
Something's going to be the wrong move here because I have Allen too. I have just a really tough situation here at wide receiver. Don't forget, guys, we're still going for 8 more minutes. So if you have more questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat or use hashtag AskTFA. We have managed to answer all the questions, it looks like, right now. So I do want to get back to a topic that was talked about before in the chat that I kind of skimmed over because we were running out of time. And somebody asked if what they thought of Martavis Bryant going forward. I personally don't know that Martavis Bryant's going to be with the Steelers going forward. That seems to be a lot of rumblings there, and I know the Steelers aren't the type to give in to a player's demands, but they are the type to get rid of wide receivers. We saw it with Mike Wallace. We saw it with Plaxico Burress. Right? They don't hold on to receivers, especially if they're causing a problem. So Martavis may be fine, but it may be for another team.
For me, I think Martavis finishes the season with the Steelers. I know this is I could be wrong, but with all his suspensions and whatnot, but I do think this is the last year of his contract. So with players like that, you do see teams try to trade them just to see if they can get something before free agency, before the player leaves in free agency. So I think there might be some truth to these trade rumors. But in terms of trade rumors, they come from 2 places. They come from, 3 places. They come from the player, if the player is unhappy, which by all accounts that he's said publicly, Martavis Bryant is fine. And would like to get more involved in the offense, but does like being in Pittsburgh, which I do think they should involve him more in the offense. When the man catches the ball, he's a monster. He's just so fast and so big that I don't know why they're not using him more. It could be that he's still shaking off some rust, but I do think he's in a good spot this week. And then the other 2 places is from the team, to sort of try to kind of motivate the player, puts that rumor out there, gives it to Rappaport or Schefter or these guys, and says, hey, we're thinking about trading such and such player, even if they're not, just to try to get them motivated. And then the other place, it could be a team that wants him, wants that rumor out there to maybe get the Steelers thinking, hey, maybe we should trade him. Maybe we can get something for him before he leaves. But when all these trade rumors and everything started, my first thought was everyone was like, oh, well, what's a team that could use Martavis Bryant? Maybe it's this team, maybe it's this team. My thought was the Steelers could use Martavis Bryant. That's who could use Martavis Bryant. You know, like with Antonio Brown balling out every single week the way that he is. And just imagine, and we have for a while, we've been imagining this scenario in which Martavis Bryant gets 100 yards and Antonio Brown gets 150, and the Steelers put up 800 points, and just everything goes bananas with that offense. And I don't know if it's because he's rusty. I don't know if it's because Ben doesn't trust him. I don't know what it is, but it's not quite clicking. And I think when that's going on, you're going to have to deal with stuff like this, with rumors of trades and things like that. If something's not working, people are going to ask why, and hey, maybe it can work somewhere else. But I do think there are definitely teams, contending teams, that could use Martavis Bryant's talent. But I think one of those is the Steelers, and I think they would be wise to get him more involved, get him more targets, regardless of whether or not he's open. The man is so good at getting the ball, regardless of whether he's open or not.
Oh, he's talented, no doubt. I was quite bullish.
He's so talented, it blows my mind that they haven't been able to use him the way that we thought.
Well, I was quite bullish on it. I actually did cut him for Juju Smith-Schuster in a league, and then I eventually cut Juju as well. He's getting the play time and he's getting the targets, but he's not doing anything with it. So I did lose him in a league, not feeling awful about it because the situation is rough. But Chester Richmond did come in with a question here, so I'd like to speak more on Bryant, but we're not going to have time. Ty Montgomery or Keenan Allen this week?
For me, it's Keenan Allen, just because I do think he's going to have the best matchup against the Denver corners. I know he's been dealing with the shoulder injury, and I do think he will play. But with Ty Montgomery, we talked about Aaron Jones being the better play as far as that backfield this week, just because of the weather and because of the matchup. But I do think that they're both going to see about half the work. I do think Ty Montgomery is still going to be involved. And I think if you're looking if you need a decision now, obviously because the Saints and Packers game is earlier, I wouldn't blame you for starting Allen, just being worried about the matchup and worried about his injuries. But for me, it would be Allen. But I definitely understand if you feel safer and more comfortable with Montgomery.
Yeah, it's tough. We don't know what Montgomery's role is yet. He is coming back. This is his second week back. Aaron Jones has been, or is this his first week back? Regardless, Aaron Jones has been fantastic filling in for him. It is rainy, so maybe he gets a lot of plays, but I mean, Keenan Allen's the number one target. There's nobody else there. He does have a tough matchup, so I'd probably lean Keenan Allen as well. 2 minutes left. TN says, do you guys think Kaepernick will ever be back in the NFL? No.
I do think it will happen, but I think it will happen next season.
If you're asking me, should he? Yes. Will he?
Yeah, obviously he should have been on a starting roster, at the beginning of the season in just terms of raw talent. But with the season almost halfway over now, there's no reason a team would go out and try to sign Kaepernick and try to pick up a few games with him. If Green Bay has been the best candidate so far after losing Aaron Rodgers, but if say he wins by the time he gets acclimated to the offense and they bench Brandon Hundley for Colin Kaepernick, it's week 10 or so, and then you've only got 6 or 7 games, and maybe Kaepernick helps you win 3 of those. So, you're not going to sign Colin Kaepernick for 3 wins.
I will say this.
I think his best chance was the preseason was getting signed. But
I don't know that we're getting the full story there, because I find it hard to believe that he's not a better backup than a lot of the people out there. Perhaps he wants to be a starter and he won't sign unless he is a starter. That could be a situation. We haven't heard, remember, from the Kaepernick camp since before this season. I mean, it has been ridiculously quiet. But if you think about it,
good that you point that out.
Miami lost Tannehill. They went with Cutler, right? Mariota could certainly use a better backup than Matt Castle, and Kaepernick plays similarly. You got Green Bay now here with this situation. I think Minnesota, Case Keenum is the backup there. Is Kaepernick better than Keenum? Maybe as a pure talent, sure, but Keenum has been playing pretty well at this point. So I think there's been situations that he could have filled in. We're not hearing from the Kaepernick side, though, and that's what really still keeps me from saying, oh, yeah, he's being blackballed. Because if he wants a starting job and if he won't sign unless it is a starting job, I don't know that a team would sign him.
I 100% agree with that, Anthony, and that's been my biggest sort of concern with the whole thing is that we haven't heard from Kaepernick's camp. They haven't put out a statement. He hasn't held a press conference. Or
he did file that grievance. I forgot about that. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, in there. Yep.
He filed a lawsuit against the NFL. That's about all we've heard from him, Yeah. So I think with coaches and owners, that matters, how much you care about football, how much you want to play, that matters to them, especially if you're going to come in at the quarterback position. I think if he was a wide receiver, if he was a corner, if he was an offensive lineman, Kaepernick would have been signed a week after he left the 49ers.
Yeah.
But because of the position, they're just so tentative with having all that concern without knowing how committed he would be, how much he's been working out this offseason. I haven't seen a video or a photo of Kaepernick throwing the ball since the last time he started a game.
We are out of time. That being said, kickoff is starting now. That being said, I still think he should be on a team. Somebody get Kaepernick signed at this point.
Agreed.
Blackballing a player for standing up for what he believes in is absolutely ridiculous, and that needs to stop. So we are going to sign off, guys. Best of luck this week with your fantasy football matchups. We'll be back for the Fantasy Authority podcast. It launches Thursday morning, remember. So make sure you tune in on iTunes Podcasts, Stitcher, whatever your podcasting software of choice is. Kai, thank you so much for saving me here today and joining me on the Game Day show. Best of luck to your teams as well, man.
Oh, yeah. We're not playing each other this week, so we're good.
Not this week. I'll get you
again. We can just all win this week.
I almost beat you. It was close. No, it wasn't.
That was close. It was too close for comfort.
All right. I'll see you guys later. Have a good week.
Later.